38 of Who the Fuck Did I Marry? I'm going to call this housekeeping and missing pieces. So, housekeeping. First and foremost, as much as I know you all have enjoyed this series, and some of you have told me how entertaining you have found it, the story will be done this weekend. So, in other words, I don't care how many parts I got to film. It will be done this weekend. We're not going to drag it into the new week. So I just want to let everyone know that. So please be sure to tell your sisters, your mamas, your aunties, your cousins, your best friends, hey y'all, go ahead and watch all the parts, because she's saying she's wrapping it up this weekend. But I'll leave the playlist up, so don't worry. Also, let's see. I'm sorry for the people who are like, I keep talking really slow. I didn't know that I was, and they're like, you're just long-winded. I'm very detailed. So that's probably what you're feeling, is that I'm detailed, and I'm trying to get everything out, again, in a responsible manner. So, you all have asked me if I will do a live. Yes, I will. I don't have any issue doing a live. I feel like if you're going to put the story out there, you know you're going to get questions. So if you stand on business and you stand on what you said, do the live. So yes, I will do a live, and I will let you all know when I'm gonna do a live, so it won't just be some random shit. I will actually do a live and let everyone know, so that way if you have questions, bring them. The issue with doing a live is that I need moderators. So because I just anticipate a lot of people have questions and I'm just one person, and I don't want to be accused of she's ignoring my question, which means there's holes in her story. Y'all, we all know how TikTok is. So but I will absolutely do a live. That's the housekeeping. Missing pieces. So when I said before that it's important to me that I'm responsible in how I tell this story, meaning I'm clear and I go in detail, I realized that I left out some missing parts. And it was brought to my attention by a number of you. Thank you, because I'm all for accountability. I did not go into how my ex-husband, Legion, left the condiment company and then went to Apple. I also did not go into detail on when my mom came to visit. Both of those were in the month of April. I was going to go into detail a little bit more on the Apple situation because, as you probably have figured out, of course something came out later on. But nevertheless, in terms of April of 2021, my mom came for a visit. She lived in Arkansas. She came to visit us. She came to visit us after we had that whole sexting on Facebook incident, and just after we had started marital counseling. There were no fireworks during her visit. Nothing was weird. I did talk about how, my family has always been there, and if you spoke with my mom, she would tell you she didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but there was something in her spirit that just didn't sit right. She didn't talk to me about it at the time. She did not raise her concerns. She simply, when she came to visit, we welcomed her with open arms. Legion was excited to meet her. She was excited to meet him. We took my mom out to eat. It was a typical, very quiet, non-active visit. I didn't know what my mother thought until later on. So she didn't share with me during the visit, something don't seem right. She and I sat in the guest room talking. I never told her anything that was going on. Number one, because again, it goes back to that mindset of what happens in my marriage needs to stay in my marriage. And I talk about how I didn't think looking back, it was not a good idea that I told my aunt what had happened. My aunt is not the type that's going to tell my mother. That in other words, if you confide in her, she keeps it between you and her. So my mom never knew that there were any issues. And so there was nothing for her to be on mama bear mode. Had she known, this would have been a very different trip, but she didn't know. So she did come to visit. Everything went fine. He and I put on a united front. Oh, we're so happy. We're so, in love. And yes, behind the scenes was a whole different story. He talked to her about how he was looking to buy a house, and how he told her how work was going, how his job, how his job was going, bragging as usual, which I did tell my mom, look, he's going to talk about himself and money a lot. So, just change the subject. If he brings up a house, change the subject. That was my instructions to her, because I was like, I don't even want to get into the whole house situation. So, other than that, uneventful. Now, once my mom left, this is still in April, everything was fine with him at the condiment company, as far as I knew. Everything was fine. What ended up happening is he randomly came home one day and starts complaining about changes that are going on at the company. when he started complaining about those changes, it was things like, keep in mind, he is not VP of the company. He was VP of, I keep getting it wrong, but I think it was VP of production is what the memo says. So he was not the second in command for the company. He was upset that he was being blamed for production stats, that the production was down. He was upset that his plant manager apparently had resigned. He was upset that some of the policy changes that were coming into play that would affect his plant. These are the things that he was coming home and complaining about. Literally, he would complain. He started complaining Monday. By Friday, he said, you know what, if they continue doing this, then I just need to find another job. He was like, I think I'm gonna call my homeboy that I work with at Apple, and I'm gonna see, you know, what they have available. Yes, there were red flags going up. Of course there were. At this point, we're not even dealing with United Nations of red flags. We are dealing with the Olympics. We are dealing with the parade of all nations. Everybody got a red flag. So when he said that, I was kind of like, okay, because I had become numb to all the antics that he did. I was numb to it. So he literally said, I think I'm gonna call my homeboy and I'm gonna see what's at Apple. My response to him was, well, what about your salary? Would you take a pay cut? He was like, no, I'm not gonna take a pay cut. Like, I wouldn't leave unless it's gonna be the same amount or more money. Y'all, the next week, last week of April, I'm at work, minding my own business. He calls me and tells me, I've decided to resign. You what? I've decided to resign. Don't worry. Don't get all crazy. I had talked to my homeboy. There is a position at Apple, and I'm on my way there now to go and meet him so that I can get some information on the position. We're married, y'all. We're married. So what I said to him was, well, will you get all this in writing? His words to me were, of course I'm going to get it in writing. I'm not stupid. You know what? I don't even want to talk to you no more. Click. That's the end of April. So that is how I was introduced to this Apple job. Again, if you stick with the series, you will find out exactly what happened. But that's how I was introduced to the Apple job. It literally was in a span of within 2 weeks. And he resigned from the condiment company and immediately said, I'm going to move over to Apple. Just wanted to clarify that. So, we will continue. Part 39, who the fuck did I marry? Everything you're going to hear probably in this part and the next part, all of this happens in the month of July, 2021. Divorce has been filed. It was filed the end of June. I got his signature on the divorce settlement agreement. I thought that I had to wait 30 days before I could actually file that with the court. And so this is kind of in the limbo period because I'm still within those 30 days. So he left a book bag at the house, book bag that had all kind of paperwork in there. Inside the book bag, this is the paperwork that I found. Number one, I found a packet from the condiment company where it showed his 401k contributions. It also stated in there that he had been terminated. So he was terminated from the condiment company according to the paperwork in the packet that I saw in the book bag that he left at my house. Also in the book bag were paycheck stubs from a previous job where he worked at a cemetery. The same cemetery that he took me to show me where his grandmother and grandfather were buried. So let's go ahead. I'll do this video and say this is what he told me. This is what I confirmed. He told me his grandmother and grandfather were buried there. He showed me a headstone with a family name on it. If you go back in previous parts, I talk about it. The truth is they are not buried there. He is of no relation to the people who are buried at that particular gravesite. Only reason why he knew about it is because he had worked there. Also in the book bag, it was a copy of a driver's license that he had. The address on the driver's license, now this I still don't have an answer to, but the address on the driver's license was the same address as the cemetery, because I looked it up on Google. Also in the book bag was paperwork from another construction company job, meaning it was paycheck stubs from another construction company here in Atlanta that he had worked for. It did not have dates on it, so I don't know when he worked for the construction company. Also in the book bag paperwork was unemployment paperwork. So it looked like he had been receiving unemployment just before I met him. I met him in March. It looked like he had been receiving unemployment January and February. So once again, let's confirm. He did not work for the condiment company for 6 to 7 years. Also in there were scraps of paper from a temp agency where it was information on the job that he had been placed at. Where was that job? The condiment company. He would be a forklift / loader is what it said. So I interpret that to mean he can drive a forklift, but he would have been loading up the 18-wheelers for them to go out to their deliveries. Also in this book bag was paperwork from Clayton County courts, I believe, for a weekend, what is it called? A weekender jail. It was like a weekender jail receipt. So I had to do some research. So apparently what that means is that there is an option where if you have a job, let's say you were sentenced to 60 days in jail, but you have a full-time job. Apparently, the court can say, okay, you'll go to jail on the weekends. So in other words, you have to report to the jail on Friday at 5 o'clock, and you'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You will get out Sunday at 6 o'clock. Apparently, that's actually a real thing. So what was in the book bag were multiple yellow receipts for different weekends that he had to report and get out of jail. Last but not least, there were some additional pictures, and then there were some, and when I say pictures, I'm talking about family photos. And then there was another additional copy of his driver's license with the Douglasville address. I looked up that address. The name associated with that address was the same name as the ex-girlfriend that he had in between the ex-wife and me. If you go back to the video where I talk about the conversation I had with the ex-wife, she tells me that the address was going to come back to the ex-girlfriend. I'm simply saying that is correct. So what she told me is true. So because of everything that I found, I decided to go down a new rabbit hole. Again, just recapping what I said in previous videos. Ex-husband was always a stickler about law enforcement. His dad was a retired police officer. I'm just telling y'all the story. His dad was a retired police officer. Mom was a retired teacher. After his dad retired, they moved to Augusta, started a church. He took me to that church in Augusta. The same day that he took me to meet his aunt who lived in Augusta. So these are now things that he actually took me to, just like he took me to the cemetery. So that's what I found in the book bag. The weekender jail receipts. I went ahead and went online to find out exactly why did he have to go to jail for the weekend. And I'm going to end this part here. The next part has to do with his criminal history. Part 40, who the fuck did I marry? So we are now at the point of July 2021. We are at the point where I've spoken to the female cousin, and she gave me the phone number for the older brother. For the purposes of this video, we're going to call him Chris. Chris was very nice. I called him. He was gracious. He was willing to answer whatever questions I had. And what he said to me was, he said, my brother has always been a liar. He's always been a liar. He said, but ask me what questions you have, and I'll confirm what's real and what's not. First question I had was, when was the last time you spoke to him? Without missing a beat, Chris says, 2015, just after our mother's funeral. I explained to him about the phone calls. The fact that Legion would be on the phone for 35 minutes, laughing, talking to Chris, relaying messages from Chris to me, and relaying messages from me to Chris. Without missing a beat, Chris says he was never talking to me. And he said, now, I am going to say this. Maybe he was on the phone, but he was not on the phone with me. He said because he knows that if I ever see him, I'm going to whoop his ass. And I'm laughing because obviously Legion loves to say I'm going to whoop somebody's ass. So for the people who are confused, like, wait, what does this mean about the phone calls? What this means is every single time that my ex-husband was on the phone, holding his phone like this, talking, laughing, cracking jokes. Hey, my wife said that, we can go later on this evening and all this other stuff. Every time they were doing things like that, every time he was having a phone call or conversation that he claims to be with Chris, no one is on the phone. No one's on the phone. That is what that means. So I'm on the phone with Chris. My mind is spinning. It is blowing up like a volcano. I mean, I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy because what this means is that for the past 4 or 5 months, every morning that he is having a phone call with his brother Chris, I am now understanding in real time that that phone call was completely fake. So Chris tells me maybe he was talking to somebody else, but it wasn't me. He said the only family member that Legion actually talks to is the twin. And that's only because, for some reason, I guess it's their twins, he helps him out when he needs it. Legion only calls the twin when he needs money. And the twin, according to Chris, now this is the part that might blow some minds. The twin brother, the one that is older by 20 minutes, is VP of his company, is married, drives a luxury car, and lives in like a 4 or 5 bedroom house in Nashville. So Chris is saying to me, he was like, it sounds like he took the identity of the twin and was trying to act like that's his life. And it's not. He was like, that nigga ain't never had no money, ain't never kept a job a long period of time. And he was like, and you're telling me that he claims he was VP of a company? And so he was like, did you ever see anything? Did you ever meet people like Chris? I respect the fact that he was asking me the same questions y'all are asking me. Did you ever meet any family members? And I told him, I said, I met your aunt. Well, what aunt is that? I told him her name. He said, that ain't our damn aunt. I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with people from Philly. So he was just loud. He was like, that ain't our aunt. He said, that is our mother's best friend. And I don't trust that hoe. I'm sorry. It's the way he said it that it makes me laugh. Anyway, he's like, I don't trust her. I don't trust her at all. She is not our aunt. She was our mother's best friend when our mother was living in Augusta. She's not our aunt. So then I explained to him about the other brothers. The brothers, remember, there were 2 half brothers from his dad. One lived in Baltimore, one lived in Augusta. Chris is on the phone saying, I don't know who them niggas are. They ain't related to us. He said, our dad never had other kids. He was like, so you mean to tell me this nigga going around telling people that our dad had kids on our mom? And I said to him, well, the way he actually put it is that the 2 brothers came before y'all. He was like, hell no. No. So then I explained to him about the sisters. He was like, who the hell is Shantae? And I was like, Shantae, again, I'm just telling you what I was told. Shantae is a sister that lives in Douglasville, married with 2 kids. He was like, no, we don't have a sister. Told him about Kim. He was like, Kim's not our sister, she's a cousin. And he said to me, and I know she ain't talked to him in forever in 2 days. He said, so the only people who are his family members is Chris and the twin. He's like, we got some cousins up here. I told him about Junebug. I told him about the uncle. I told him about the grandmother. And he's just sitting back like, oh my God. He said, he was like, I realized that every relationship my brother gets in, he gets worse. And it sounds like he is actually worse than what he was in the last relationship. And I thought he was talking about the ex-wife that I had spoken to. No, he had no idea there was another wife. Because again, he hasn't spoken to him since 2015. So he was like, the best thing I can say to you is this. He said, thank God you ain't have kids with him. He said, get your divorce and forget you ever met this man. And he was like, and I know how that sounds because he's my brother. He said, but if I didn't have to claim him, I wouldn't. And I said to him something that I should have probably said in this whole TikTok series. This is not someone that you forget. This is not a situation that, man, I don't even remember him. No. What I don't remember is the version of myself before I met him. Because nothing so far has turned out to be true. The only thing that Chris was able to tell me is true is that, number one, yes, there is a brother in Philly, him. Yes, there is a brother in Nashville, the twin. Yes, both parents are deceased. That is what I was told from the beginning. Those pieces of information are true. The grandmother did die in 2008. He was like, no, she definitely didn't die in 2020. I told him how I found the obituary. And so he was like, and the uncle, he said, which uncle is he talking about? Because if you guys remember, back in one of the parts, I talk about where he said his uncle was giving him advice on why he should not open up his savings account to let me see it. He would not let me see it. And so I'm telling Chris about the uncle, and he was like, that uncle been dead for years. I told him about Junebug. He said, Junebug been dead for years. And I said, Chris, he was having conversations with Junebug. on the phone in front of me. He was like, it wasn't Junebug. He said, it sounds like my brother was making up the conversations. He said, he definitely was making up the conversations with me. He said, hell no, I ain't going to be on the phone at no 6 o'clock in the morning. So the conversation with Chris solidified that this is the actual family tree. And no, there were never any conversations with his brother every morning when I was getting ready to go to work. They had never talked. On to the next part.